Hello and welcome to another SciFirst MovieTalk episode. Following my last festive episode, counting down my all-time favourite top 10 feel-good festive Christmas movies for 2019, I wanted to present a differing kind of list for those of you who like your Christmas films with a bit more grit and perhaps even some blood and gore. The keen-eyed amongst you may have noted that in the list presented at the end of my 2019 top 10 feel-good festive movies, countdown did not include a number of films, as you may have expected it to, perhaps. A number of these were deliberately left out, as they didn't fit the technical brief that I had for the feel-good kind of, for the feel-good list. What I have therefore compiled, after painstakingly going through my movie collection, for this episode is a list of my top 10 favourite alternative Christmas films. For those of you that want a bit more of a dark, edgier Christmas. The films in the list do range. Some may still leave you with that warm and fuzzy feeling. Others might tear that feeling right from underneath you. I must state that the films that were considered, all listed at the end of this episode again, I might add, with only those I have personally seen. And so there may, of course, be other alternative holiday classics out there which had no chance of making it into this top 10. The list represents my own personal interests and beliefs when it comes to those films presented, chosen from my own personal collection comprising of about 15 films I found, which I believe to fit the required brief. I would be extremely interested, of course, to hear from your thoughts on this list, and of course what your favourite alternative Christmas films and movies actually are. Who knows, I might even get to watch a few again on the run-up to Christmas 2020. Who knows, the list may even change as a result, and change next year for the festive films in the coming year, so the list for 2020 might look completely different. However, without further ado, for 2019, here's my favourite top 10 alternative festive films. So, in 10th place, we have the 2006 festive slasher flick, Black Xmas, starring amongst others Michelle Trachtenberg, Lacey Chabert, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. This is the original remake, if you like, of the original released in 1974, not the further remake released this year in 2019. So, okay, perhaps a bit cheesy and formulaic in places, but certainly set at Christmas and certainly alternative. It sees basically a sorority house being targeted by a ruthless killer as the students try to celebrate and prepare for the Christmas holidays. In 9th place, we have 1987's Lethal Weapon, directed by Richard Donner and starring, of course, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. I admit the Christmas links for this one might be a little bit tenuous at best. However, the film does start with Jingle Bell Rock and has a number of festive references. So here, I thought it was eligible for inclusion. The film sees two mismatched LAPD detectives forced to work together to bring down a drug smuggling operation in an action comedy buddy movie, basically. Generally regarded to be one of the best. It certainly set the way for many others to follow, including 3 sequels of its own, and more recently a TV series. If you fancy watching something with a bit more of an edge this Christmas, then this film's for you. In 8th place, we have A Bad Moms Christmas, released in 2017 as a sequel to the successful Bad Moms, starring all of the original cast, Mila Kunis, Kristen Bell and Kathryn Hahn, and a couple of new additions, including Christine Baranski, Cheryl Himes, and Susan Sarandon, starring as the original moms. This one is certainly more festive than some of the other films on this list, and does kind of stick to the happy, albeit in the end, Christmas message. But the nature of the comedy and the sometimes raunchy subject matter make this not one for the kids. The film revolves around Mila Kunis' character, who wants to take Christmas down a notch this year, and have it the way her family wants, basically. However, enter her mum, played by Christine Baranski, who has different ideas and takes over Christmas, planning a series of ever more extravagant events. Needless to say, the comedy ensues when the two mums go head to head. In 7th place, we have 2016's dark comedy crime caper movie, Bad Santa 2, starring Billy Bob Thornton, Kathy Bates, Tony Cox and Brett Kelly. This is, of course, the sequel to 2003's Bad Santa. In my opinion, a little bit more coherent than the movie, than the original one, being a bit more mainstream in its execution. Not quite as good though, but still extremely crude. The plot sees Billy Bob's character team up, albeit reluctantly, with his mum and old partner in crime in order to commit a robbery. Basically, the robbery's on a charity, and as a consequence, he has to don the mankiest looking Santa suit I've ever seen once more. With twists and turns, double crossing, and a true test of conscience, basically, it's a little bit of rude, crude, and lewd festive fun. In 6th place, we have 1990's Tim Burton's classic Edward Scissorhands, starring Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder. The film revolves around Edward, a half-finished creation. I would suppose you could say android, though I would suggest his mechanisms are more mechanical than electronic. But nonetheless, you get what I mean, whose inventor never managed to complete his hands, prior to his death having only scissors for hands instead. After living on his own for many years in an old abandoned castle, Edward is found by a teenage girl, teenage girl played by Winona Ryder, and taken in by her family. Although Edward finds it difficult at first to actually adjust to life outside the castle, he soon finds that his scissors actually can be used for good, in terms of creating beautiful and wonderful sculptures, and even fancy dog grooming, and endearing the hearts of the local neighbourhood. However, his new life soon comes short-lived, as through a series of unfortunate events, the neighbourhood is basically pitted against him. So okay, this one probably falls closer to being the festive fun kind of movie than it does the alternative, as not all the gritty and macabre as some of the other films that are actually in the list. However, with its very gothic feel and relatively saddish ending, I thought it deserved a mention in this list, personally. In 5th place, we have the 1988 comedy classic Scrooged, directed by Richard Donner, Lethal Weapon anybody, and starring Bill Murray. The film is a 1980s contemporary retelling of the classic A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. For those of you that may not have watched the film, you may be wondering why a film based on Charles Dickens' tale is considered alternative. Well, this is due to the way in which the tale is actually retold. The comedy is quite dark and edgy for a Christmas film. Bill Murray's character, Frank Cross, a mean-spirited TV executive, is hell-bent on pinching every penny and every minute from his workforce in an extravagant film production of Christmas Carol within the film. He's visited by 4 ghosts that are a bit more rough and ready than we're actually used to with other retellings and other adaptations of the classic tale. They certainly don't hold back their punches and can be quite volatile, to say the least. The film does stay fairly true, however, to the ethos of the original classic. It just does it with a bit more grit. In 4th place, we have 1988's Bruce Willis action flick Die Hard, directed by John McTiernan. There has been quite a lot of discussion over the years as to whether or not this actually qualifies as a Christmas film or not. Well, it is set at Christmas and has a number of Christmas songs as part of its soundtrack. So, okay, the film is pretty much as close to a gritty hardcore action film that you're going to get, but that doesn't mean it can't be festive as well. So, ergo, I've gone for the safe option and I've included it in my favourite alternative Christmas movie list. Why not? The film sees Bruce Willis playing hardcore NYPD cop John McClane, visiting his estranged wife in Los Angeles. After a series of events, unfortunate events I would suppose, he finds himself as the lone avenger in a skyscraper, waging a blood and guts wrenching one-man war against a band of would-be terrorists. Festive. The film basically launched Bruce Willis's career and shot him into superstardom and spawned a number of great sequels. Well worth a watch or a revisit if you've seen it before, if you like your Christmases with an all-out adrenaline rush. In 3rd place, we have 1992's Tim Burton follow-up to 1989's Batman, Batman Returns. Does anybody think Tim Burton likes Christmas? I must admit that I didn't even realise this film was basically had a Christmas theme until I started looking at details for this episode. And yes, having remembered the film thereafter, it's been quite a while since I last watched it. It is certainly set at Christmas in Gotham City, so I can vouch for it in that respect. The film sees Michael Keaton don the Batman suit for one last time as that Caped Crusader, and is pitted this time against Danny DeVito's Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Upon reflection, the film certainly does have quite a gothic, festive feel, and its dark nature and content certainly places it into the alternative category. The film is certainly up there with some of Tim Burton's best, with extremely lavish sets and adventurous plotlines. It is one of the only superhero movies that I can think of that's set at Christmas, and so if you really need your superhero fix this Christmas, then you can't go too far wrong with this one. Of course, if you want to stay somewhat festive at the same time. In second place, we have 2003's comedy Bad Santa, starring the cast which appeared in the earlier mentioned 2016 sequel. This is another lewd and crass comedy with it's got a similar premise as the sequel, being another dark comedy crime caper, this time with armed criminals plotting a department store heist. Basically casing the joint over the Christmas period, posing as the store's Santa and his elf in the run-up to Christmas. It's an unyielding movie with a lot more vulgar points, in my opinion, than its sequel, and hence the highest spot in this countdown. I did think the plot was a little bit more disjointed, perhaps, with not everything working in connection with the main overall story, however, within the main overall story arc. However, I think it does convey the epitome of basically what an alternative Christmas is, whilst actually still managing to be quite festive. But again, with one of the most disgusting and abused Santa suits I've ever seen. And so, finally, another big drum roll, please. In first place, we have the Joe Dante 1984 classic Gremlins, starring Zach Gilligan and Phoebe Cates, and of course featuring the ever-adorable Gizmo. Based on stories that were told by fighter pilots in World War II, the film centres around a young man given a mogwai, a small, cute and cuddly-looking creature, as a present for Christmas. The mogwai comes with a series of number of rules, which must be obeyed. Little do they know, however, what the penalty is for disobeying the rules, and that is the creation of mischievous and spiky, scaly creatures known as the Gremlins. The film is an absolute alternative Christmas classic. Mayhem and destruction prevail when the Gremlins are set loose on an unsuspecting small town at Christmas time. The special effects and puppetry work simply ahead of the time, and for me, there is very little that has been made recently of a similar ilk that basically qualifies, that can catch the hearts and minds of its viewers, as this film does. If you like your Christmases with a bit more of a scare and a bunch of eager, if not misguided, critters in tow, then this film is a must for you. So, here we have it, my top 10 festive movies with an alternative twist for 2019. So remember, this is only my own personal list of alternative festive favourites, based on the movies I've watched and own. It would be interesting to know your thoughts on the list and, of course, your own alternative festive favourites. And so please do leave a comment in the section below. So that brings me to the end of this special festive episode. Many thanks for watching. If you like my reviews and general movie discussions and you want to see more, please do hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this page, and of course leave any comments that you want, especially if you want me to watch any movies that you think would be suitable for this SciFirst MovieTalk series. As promised, at the end of the episode, to continue, I have presented a list of all those films are considered, in no particular order, eligible for inclusion within this top 10 countdown. Enjoy. So, thank you for watching, and I do hope you all have an absolutely great Christmas.